Hello and welcome to the Immortalist, where the goal is to live free and to live forever. This is Cody Dean here with James Strole. Excited to have you on, James. You've
Thank you
been
very much.
around in this scene for a lot of years. You started back when it was a quack science to focus on longevity. So you've really stuck it out. You deserve a ton of recognition for what you've done. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thank you, Cody. It's great being on your show today. Excuse me. I sprayed a little bit of my water here. So, yeah, of course, I'm James Strole. I'm the director for the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, which produces RadFest. Okay, and a coalition is a 501c3 non-for-profit, and we got a lot of different initiatives that we're introducing as we go along. But RadFest has been our major event that we started in 2016. Was the first one. And last year we were in Anaheim, and next year in 2025, as you know, we'll be in Vegas from June 10th through the 13th. And it's going to be our 10th anniversary. So it'll be a fantastic event. We've got a lot of great collaborators and influencers now that want to come in. In fact, I'm going to announce right now on your podcast here, if you don't mind, because it's the
Sure.
latest news. So Aubrey de Grey now, Dr. Aubrey de Grey, who is the head of Leave Longevity Escape Velocity or company now, has been doing his event over in Berlin, over in Europe every year. But he contacted us. We made a connection at RadFest again. He's been at RadFest every year. He loves RadFest, but he wants to merge his event with ours here in the States. So
Oh,
in
cool.
Vegas, we're going to be doing a collaboration with him, merging his top science that he's got bringing to the table, and then what RadFest brings, with all the science that knits in with the inspiration. He wrote a big article about I think it was 2018 after a couple of years of RadFest about how RadFest combines the inspiration with the science, and how he loved that because it creates a collaboration more between the scientists and the people, etc. So now he said, well, RadFest, we've been real steady, and he wants to move to the States, so he wanted to merge with us. So it's working out good, and it looks like we're going to do it in 2025 in Vegas.
Wow, that is really exciting. He's been
Yes, big step up.
another one along with you. He's been at it for a lot of years, so that's really exciting
Yes,
news.
yes, he's got the same
So,
passion we do. Happen and speed it up.
yes. So for the sake of people who aren't very familiar with you, if you don't mind, you want to tell a little bit about how you got started in longevity? I know you've told the story before on other shows, but you were quite young when you really got enthusiastic and interested in this. So tell that story if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, not at all. Well, I'll try to make that short, because it was an impactful story for me, of course. But you know, I was 11 years old, and like so many of us at that age, you feel invincible, and we think we're immortal, at least until we're told we're not, or see somebody die that we're close to. And that's what happened to me. My grandmother died. I was very close to her, and it's the first time I experienced the pain of losing somebody. And so I was, pretty depressed at that time about it. And my mother was trying to comfort me. And so she said, well, don't worry. You're going to see her when you die and go to heaven. She was a religious woman. Oh, that didn't sound very good to 11-year-old, right? It wasn't very comfortable to die to go. But anyway, so I said, okay. So I just popped it out of my mouth. I said, well, why do we have to die to go to heaven? Why can't we create a heaven here on earth? At that time, heaven to me was not losing people that you really care about, and much less yourself. I could sense that at 11 years old, something's wrong with that. So great, good, I'll say tremendous enough that, I was feeling that way, but my mother was quite a progressive person too. So she didn't, like criticize me for that. She just said, oh, that's a good thought. You should pursue that. So that was in my, just in me from then on. And I just, through school, when the teacher would say write themes when you're in grade school and junior high, write these themes about life. You're always writing them. And so I'd always write my feelings a lot rather than express them. So I'd always write on, unlimited life, having heaven here on earth, et cetera, et cetera. So it was very moving to some of my teachers. I was very fortunate in that too, that I wasn't criticized, and they began to also give me encouragement to pursue that. And in fact, I was called into the principal's office one day when I was in sixth grade, and I thought I was being called in because I was in trouble. But I got caught in because the principal, and then I go in there. My parents were in there, and they wanted to tell my parents that, hey, this kid is writing things about that are very unusual, and he's going to do something meaningful, and we want to nurture that. So
Wow.
so I had a very blessed childhood in that respect, not only with my mother, but with of course I'll first say not only with my mother, but people that were in that school and also my junior high at that time. Later on in years, as you know, everybody experiences, right? You start to grow up, and then you start getting the criticism and the skeptics.
Right.
But
Hmm.
I already had that base, that gave me certain confidence. And also, I think you know this too, that when you have a purpose, you draw to you other people around you that share that purpose. It's kind of a
Yeah.
gravity. You gravitate
Yeah.
to each other, and so I've had that blessings too. That through my growing up, I just drew people that were that I could have these conversations with. And then in 1968, I met my partner, Bernadine, and a partner of hers that were actually speaking that unlimited life spans were possible, that immortality was
Okay.
possible. That's where I started getting really. I was in college, and I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. Though I want to work with them. So in 1972, I started working with them. As you know, we lost Bernie this last June,
Mhm.
June 16th, to breast cancer. Unfortunately, she was amazingly healthy otherwise, and was 86, and really, as you know, very energetic. You've seen her at events, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
we lost her to breast cancer.
Mm.
Anyway,
So
that's how.
I was actually gonna ask you how you met Bernie, so I'm glad you brought that up. So she was already speaking at events with her other partner, and so you met and talked to them at that function and decided you wanted to join forces with them. How did that go?
Well, I was 18 and I saw them speak, and I thought, oh, I loved what they were saying. It was like that struck that total chord in me, of my purpose really, what I really felt my purpose was. At the time I was in college studying business. And so, but it took, after that, after I saw them at 18 speak here in Phoenix, they lived in Colorado. They every once in a while they'd come back here. I would go see them every time they would come, and then I started to go to their events in Colorado, and they had and also other parts of the country they would go to. So I just started getting involved that way. And in 1972, I told them, "Look, I'd like to work with you guys full time. I know you need somebody to help raise funds. I mean, you guys are working on the edge all the time and doing this great work. I'd like to help subsidize what you're doing." I had a business background. My dad was a very successful real estate broker, had his own firm. I was working in that. And so that's what I started doing. I started working with him, the base of just helping raise funds, doing investments. And also then eventually it grew into my beginning to talk, go to events with them and actually speak too. Because that's really what I wanted to do ultimately, is not only work to help raise the funds for the work, but also begin to, put my 2 cents in.
Okay. And so it was after your meeting of them and joining forces with them. It was after that that People Unlimited started. Is that how, or did they already have
Yes.
People
Oh,
Unlimited
well,
by then?
yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah, the three of us worked together for several years. We had also a company called People Forever that we established. We
Okay.
established a movement all around the world. We traveled everywhere, doing all kinds of TV shows. We were on Larry King, you name it.
Wow.
We were on a TV show speaking. In fact, what was interesting is a lot of times we do these shows back in the 70s. Bill Falloon and his partner would be on the show sometimes at the same time, either before us or after us, when they were doing a segment on longevity. And so that's how I first
Okay.
met Bill Falloon way back then. So he was a real
Oh,
pioneer in
okay.
that level around. But yeah,
I didn't
um,
realize you went that far back with him too. That's cool.
yeah. And so in 1995, Bernie and I together formed People Unlimited. And then when we
Okay.
formed People Unlimited, then in 2014 together, we formed the Coalition for Radical Life Extension.
Okay. So between 95 and 2014, there was just People Unlimited. And
Correct.
then you formed a coalition, and in that 2 year period, that's when you started Radfest. Where did the
That's
idea from Radfest start? Because that's definitely a separate idea from People Unlimited. It's its own baby,
yes.
and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, well, we were having great events with People Unlimited. We were getting out the word out as much as we could. And then one day, my communications director, who you met, Joe Bardeen, he
Mhm.
said, "Oh, he said, why don't you?" He says, "You like to, speak to people. Even when you go out to restaurants, you're always telling the waiter about immortality." And he said, "Why don't you reach out to people in the longevity community now? There's more coming out, more happening all the time. Reach out to some of the scientists or doctors and see if we can put something together with them." And so consequently, I started doing that. The idea at the time was just to create a collaboration together, uh, you know, form a coalition to galvanize the community. But we hadn't put that all together yet. So I first started reaching out to different scientists and doctors. Bill Andrews is one of the
Mhm.
first. Dr. Bill Andrews is one of the first people. And I got an overwhelming, positive response for everybody. It seemed like the timing was just right. Everybody I called and talked to about the idea of creating a coalition to galvanize the community and then also created an event to say launch it. Uh, everybody loved it. So Bill Falloon stepped in to sponsor. Bill Andrews stepped in to help out. We eventually formed a board for the coalition. I already had a nonprofit organization that I converted over to the the rat to the coalition status, and then we got the idea of creating RADFest, Revolution Against Aging and Death. We wanted something very striking, something that would really strike a chord as far as be impactful. So that's the name we came up with. And but um, yeah, we had a lot of the scientists though also tell us. They said, "Oh, please don't create another boring science event. We walk out of our own events sometimes. It gets boring for us." So we thought, okay, we went to the drawing board and we said, "Hey, why don't we create something like a Woodstock, for radical life attention, something fun, festive, and that also galvanize community with the public. That would be interested to the public. Bring something fun, festive, music, that these science events have never had that before. Something that, scientists weren't used to being clapped for." We treat
Right.
them like they're not, sometimes, unfortunately, we treat them like they're not human beings. They're just instruments of information. And really,
Mhm.
they're a lot more than that. But it really boosted them when we did that first year. We expected maybe to have 300 or 400 people. We ended up with over 1,000 people in San Diego at RADFest. And so it was a big success. And a lot of the scientists and doctors that were there were so grateful because they felt like these guys, as you know, many of them are outliers. So they formed their own
Mhm.
companies because they couldn't do what they wanted to do for companies they were working for. They wanted to cure aging. And so they really felt like finally, several of them said to me, "Look, we felt like we were in a desert out there by ourselves. And now we feel all this support. It's great, Dr. Greg Fay, Aubrey de Grey, all these guys, that just felt like, hey, this is someplace that they can call home and get inspired and have a platform to really expand on their ideas and create
Yeah.
collaborations together." That's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Greg Fay, and it's interesting. I remember when I went to my first Rad Fest in 2017, I saw Greg Fay dancing in the audience when music was playing, and then he got up right after that, and he said that's the first time he's danced in years. And he said, to what you said, he felt like he was at home and finally found family. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
found that to be
it took
true
them
as well.
Yeah, yeah. It took them all a little bit of time to get used to that, right? And even the audience are going, "What is all this dancing, this music?" Well, really, with music and dancing, we wanted to create something that was more real life, right? Something that was really an everyday what we experience. And also with music and dancing, and that you learn better. You have those breaks, and you actually simulate information better. And that's what happened. That the public really enjoyed it because they could get feel like they were more connected and could network with these doctors and scientists and talk to them. That's kind of atmosphere environment we created. So they all love that. And then the doctors and scientists could feel the support too of the public. And but yeah, you're right. I mean, Greg Behe, was one of the first to get out there finally. In 2017, started dancing in the aisle, and then others started to join him, and so things
Mhm.
just started to break loose in a new way.
Yeah, and Jose Cordero, he's always very vocal. Viva la revolution! It's amazing. It's
Yeah,
like
that's his
Woodstock
favorite.
of the science and longevity world. It's great.
Yeah, that was his favorite slogan. We love it. So we encourage people
Yeah,
just to be themselves, take the lid off. We're about aliveness anyway. We need to quit putting a lid on our aliveness.
right. So I want to ask you, you've been at this a lot of years, and only 10 years ago you started Radfest. What makes now, as opposed to any other time in history, what makes now the time for everyone to be galvanized behind this and really push for it like our lives depend on it? What's different now than
Yeah,
what used to be?
yeah. I feel like we're at a very important crossroads right now. We have huge opportunity to, I'll say, manifest what we all envision of a world without aging and death. I think something amazing can happen in the next, what's already happening, amazing protocols and innovations coming forth. Bill Falloon has a whole presentation that he's already put together for for Radfest for next year of all the new modalities and therapies coming up. So the growth is exponential, of course, but also we're at a crossroads in it. Are we going to still always sit back and still wait, for say the politicians to do something, which many times we go, oh, this person's going to do that, this president's going to do it, and sometimes they do great things, sometimes they don't, but we can't be subject to that. I've had different people say to me recently, oh, if this person gets in, then we can really go, well, that's good. I mean, we could use all the help we can get in that area. But I've also seen through time, and we've been doing this 50 years, that any of those political promises don't always get followed through with for many reasons. Sometimes they get, sidetracked, or Congress or the Senate doesn't pass, enable them. So my point being that we can't just depend upon that. It's great if we can have it, but we need to come together like we are already and need to really realize and understand that by us joining together, all of us, no matter what our differences are, backgrounds, that together we can go far, right? We can create, we can accelerate this movement in a way. We already are doing that, but there's so much more to do. So we're at crossroads here. So put out a call to everybody that, hey, no matter what your thoughts are about life extension, how long you want to live, whether you think it's being done the right way or not, if we'll join together, a good example, that's why we're doing the rally in the spring of 26, the DC rally for longevity rights on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in the spring of 26, because we want to accelerate this movement in every way we can. And if you look at the civil rights rally that was done with Martin Luther King, so forth, that bill that was in civil rights was stuck. In fact, they weren't even sure it was going to pass. Both, the Kennedys were struggling with it, and there was a lot of resistance to it, unfortunately. But right after that rally, which they had twice the number come out for that rally than they expected, and it was put together in about 3 months. Right after that rally, 30 days after that, that bill passed. Okay, that's just an example of the pressure of the people. We can say we want the politician to do something, that's great, but we, the people, have to do something.
Right. And that's kind of the whole point
Yeah,
of this channel too. It's titled The Immortalist, and I think that is
yeah,
exactly what you just said. Everyone is the immortalist. As long as you want to live,
that's right.
then that's the whole point. We should all come together as one voice behind that to live forever. So I
Yes,
fully agree with that.
yes, thank you. Thank you, by the way, for doing this podcast that you do, and for everybody listening. Thank you for what you're doing. I commend you all. We're all in this together, and and thank you for that point, because by us all realizing that we need each other in this way, and by gathering together, by coming to one focus. That's why I want to invite everybody to Radfest. Look, I don't own Radfest; it's a nonprofit. To me, it's the people's event, and so is this rally that we're going to do. It's a people's event. So that's all joined together And see you know numbers matter. Numbers matter. It
Yeah.
draws
Yeah.
press. It gets Washington thinking about it, right? If we can get
Hmm.
100,000 people at that mall, for example, in DC, or even a good half that number, they're going to pay attention, and that's what we want. And we want to go in there not with not demonizing anybody, the FDA or anybody else, but showing them a world, a beautiful world, that everyone would want to live in. And that's what this world is about, that we are all going for. A world with health, vitality, and strength. Not living in some decrepit state. So we all of us here, the vision, and I feel honored to be a part of this. And I feel like everybody listening probably does. It's probably the most noble cause that's ever been on the planet.
Yes, and that's the big question too. When you ask someone, "What do you think? Would you want to live forever?" And a lot of times when someone says no, they don't, it's because they imagine living forever in the world as it is, where as you get older, you get sicker and you can't move around as well. You feel disabled, uh, and so really it's not just about extending life in that sense. It's also a paradigm shift in society where we also live freer and live happier, more fulfilled lives and healthier, adding more life to the years as well as adding more years to life. And that's a really important point I think people should understand.
Well said. Well said. And then when you say to those same people, after they say, when you tell them about immortality or unlimited lifespans, and they say, "Yeah, I don't want to live in this decrepit state." But then we say, "Well, what about vitality, living with vitality and strength, and getting better all the time?" Most of the time, they'll go, "Oh, well, that's a possibility. I think I would like that."
Exactly.
All that perspective, right? So, but that's how people
Right.
think of it, right? That's how they think. Living longer is just going to be in some decrepit state.
Right. So
Yeah.
you've got a large network within these scientists and the people who are in the longevity industry who are actually working on that cure to aging and death. So being someone in that position, what do you see that's out there in the world right now that's maybe an experimental phase or trial or something that seems to be the most promising avenue right now to achieve something substantial?
Yeah, thank you for asking us. Um, there's so many. I mean, new therapies and modalities are coming to the table. Like I said earlier, new innovations that are magnificent. Some of the ones that the Yamanaki, the fact that Falun is working on, they're actually using now primates, on testing them on several different longevity factors. Now, the Yamanaki factor and is very exciting. I'm very also excited about gene therapies. I think, you know, obviously, though, I think that it's not going to be necessarily just a few or a couple therapies that are going to take us where we need to go. I mean, the best thing to keep in mind, I think, is that's living long enough to live forever, right? So
Right.
we're going to get different therapies and innovations as we go along. So important to stay healthy now, and so because the growth is so exponential that next year we're going to have more and more innovations to take us to the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 50 years. But I am excited about the gene therapies in particular right now because I'm seeing, Liz Parrish has done them. Um, Brian Johnson just did one, I think, with Mini Circle. Others are doing them now. I'm getting people contact me now that say they're utilizing the gene therapies. Not, I mean, Bill Andrews, as you know, has a gene therapy. He actually gave Liz I'll say a small dose based on what he wants to actually do. But it had a tremendous effect on Liz Parrish. I think right now she's the most has had more gene therapies than anybody on the planet at this point. And I know you've seen her last year at Radfest. She has not done any, much exercise or anything other than, she walks, she does things like that. But her muscle tone is really extraordinary. Her skin,
Mhm.
her test, she shows in her telomeres that they have lengthened. The data that she's got. So it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, Bill Andrews, the gene therapy that he has that in full strength. what she said, if he can get into human trials, which I'd like to see happen here soon, he can have within 1 to 3 years a gene therapy that it would be in pill form and would cost maybe a couple of dollars to produce the pill. And so, in other words, it could be distributed very inexpensively to everyone who would like to take it with minimal side effects based on the data he has, and could theoretically, okay, revert. You could be 90 years old and 25, 90 years chronologically, but biologically 25, if that worked completely.
Wow.
It'd be mind
And do I
blowing.
remember
So
do I remember right about Liz Parrish when she first started doing gene therapy? Hasn't she since then aged backwards 20 something years? Do I remember that right?
yes, yes, she has.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the data
See,
on
these
her.
are real things going on in the world right now, and people just have no idea. It's not talked about in the media. It's hardly talked about at all, except in the scientific circle. So, I'm
Yeah,
glad. I'm
yeah,
seeing more and more podcasts pop up too, and you going around talking to people. I'm so glad to see that because, when more people figure out that this is actually going on, more people are actually going to be excited about it because they're going to realize it's not some dream world type of thing. So these are exciting times.
yeah. It is. Oh, it's the most exciting times. We're living in wonderful times. I mean, people worry about. Well, there's a lot of conflict in the world at the same time, but we need to focus on the beautiful things happening, right? And
Right.
not get sunk into the or buried with all the conflict going on. We need to keep our spirits high, and that's what I talk a lot about too, is keeping our spirits high, because we have all the
Mhm.
reason to. There's been conflict since the beginning of time, and now we have an opportunity to create really a beautiful place here on Earth, where we really value human life, and we take ourselves then out of the era of survival into the world of creativity, into the era of
Right.
creativity, and that's
Mhm.
exciting. But on that note of so many new innovations and therapies happening right now, yeah, it's very exciting. Such exciting times to live in, and that's all the more reason for all of us to be engaged and making sure that we show up for it.
Right. And yeah, it's a really good point that we've got to be focused on the goal and know where we want to get. But I think it's just as important to realize where we are and realize there are things in play right now in society that are holding back progress. And
That's right.
so, on that note, again, being really integrated in the industry with all the people, what would you say are some of the top roadblocks for some of these promising treatments and innovations?
It's always funding, right? That's the number one, funding, because a lot of these guys are, like I say, outliers. So we'll take Bill Andrews, for example, or Greg Fahey. Okay. They both work for companies, but at one time, Bill Andrews worked for Geron. Okay. And they hired
Yeah.
him with the idea that he could work, telling him that he could work on curing aging because that was his passion. Also, he had an experience at a very young age. Interesting enough, he was around 11 years old when his dad told him, encouraged him, said, Bill, he says, you're interested in science. Go out and cure aging.
Wow.
This is what his
I didn't
dad
know
said to
that.
him. And so Bill's had that. So he's like, that's why he never gives up, right? But, so he worked with Geron. But what happened is that they didn't keep their promise to him. They kept saying, well, we want this drug created. This makes us money. That's what happens. This makes us money. We want to you focus on that. We can make enough money. Then you can do these other things for curing. But he was never able to get totally working at curing. So he left Geron, okay, and
Mm.
formed his own company, Sierra Sciences. And for a while, he was getting funding for it. But then when the crash happened in 2008, he lost a lot of his funding for his project. So now he's trying to get refunded, of course. But that's one of the big issues, especially for these outliers who now don't have these big pharmaceutical companies that will support their research. It's unfortunate. That's really why we want to get the FDA to acknowledge that aging is a disease. That way,
Mhm.
not only are we going to begin to put money into the root cause of our diseases, which is aging, okay, and deterioration of the immune system, which is happening more at earlier ages all the time, the deterioration of the immune system. And if we begin to focus on that, basically it's the greatest preventative medicine we can do. And not only will it be a domino effect by curing aging to cure a lot of these other diseases, because right now we're putting billions of dollars into, say, one disease at a time. And this is the frustration that many, even people in oncology, for example. I was at an event in California just about a month ago, and this is one of their frustrations, is that they haven't been pulling together to collaborate enough to actually to solve some of these issues. So I asked them right there in the group. I said, "Well, what about if we cured aging? What would you feel about that?" And then we all people start focusing on that and create this domino effect to solve these, just to cure the other diseases we're facing. Well, so that's really what would happen if we establish that. So we want to get the FDA to acknowledge that aging is a disease, and that way we start to get funding to cure aging, because we're not getting enough money to do it yet, and that's a big key thing.
Right. How much of an element do you think, the FDA is a big challenge because it's such a big organization. It's very slow moving when progress in any industry, particularly in health, has to be very fast paced. So do you see any challenge of, there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies which give the most advertising to media and things like that, that if aging were to be cured and all the related diseases therefore cured and taken care of, that pulls a lot of funding out of the pharmaceutical industry and therefore a lot of power out of the FDA. So do you see a challenge there of the power struggle of, maybe a suppression of some of these things because the current powers that be don't want to see this innovation and this paradigm shift because that it's a loss of power to them and it erodes them away.
Well, yeah, very, very good point. Well, that's really what we've already been facing, and yes, it'll be even more. They'll possibly see it even more of a threat. But what I'd like to do, and that's why I said when we go to the rally and in between, we're going to be writing some bills up. Like the right to for best choice medicine, the right to and the right to solve the aging issues, and go after aging rather than the one disease at a time. But as we begin to do that, I think probably the threat will many will see that as even more of a threat. But if we go in there, like I said, and if this answers your questions, I think what you're asking me, I think if we go in there not threatening anybody, not demonizing them. They're people too. They have kids. They have grandkids, and to show them that, look, this makes sense. This is a world, again, that is a beautiful world we can all live in with vitality and strength. Everybody will prosper. What good is your money that you make billions with, and then you die, right? So how about do you want to live longer with vitality? Do you want your kids to? Do you want your grandkids to? Do you want to enjoy life longer, even if you don't think you can live unlimited lifespans? Do you want to enjoy life longer with vitality and strength? So that's the basic concept that I think too often what's happened is we demonize these people when really in many ways they're just people like us doing their job. Many of them are just the good people doing what they think they should do, all right, based on certain rules and laws. But that doesn't mean they're not movable to a new with inspiration and showing them the beauty of this new world. That doesn't mean also there's not people that maybe we won't be able to convince or move to a new place. But if we get enough behind us, that's where we'll make the impact. And it's been proven through history that it doesn't take you don't have to get everybody on board. You get a certain mass together, certain amount that will receive it, and that's where the change can happen. Change doesn't happen of everybody in the world at one time. It happens from smaller minorities.
And then you reach that tipping point. That's the coalition has the project tipping point that you talk about. It's kind of that hundredth monkey syndrome thing where
Right.
once
Critical
a
mass.
whatever number that
Yes.
may be, then it kind of shifts the mental
Right.
state everywhere. It's a really good point.
But you're right. But you're right, Cody. It's a challenge, and that's all the more reason we all need to be present to rise to this challenge, because we can all make a difference together. These guys they have built a network, right? A structure, the FDA, they have built support systems around them that support their belief systems. We have a network. We need to galvanize. We need to, and we're already starting to do that. We need to bring together our network because look, we've got the best deal going. We've got the best ideas right now. And eventually those ideas prevail if we present them and manifest them in the way that I feel like we can do.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, uh, you're putting together is going to be a rally in DC, and this is going to be, you know, putting this call to action right on the doorstep of the people who really need to hear it within the United States. But how do you think that affects around the world? You know, I know the U.S. is kind of the world power. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe that's arguable depending on where you are in the world, but for the sake of conversation, we'll say it's the world power. Do you think by just shifting the paradigm in the United States, it would shift the paradigm around the world? And second part of that question, do you think there's a chance that the FDA or whatever agency would say, okay, we hear you, we're going to work with you, let's move this along, and then do what has been the pattern over many years, let progress go, let's say, one step forward, but then pull the plug and everything goes two steps back. Like Prospera experience with Honduras, they had an agreement, things were going really well. And then Honduras said, actually, never mind, we're pulling the plug on this. And now they're set back to square zero. So, how do we combat that possibility of a false progress?
Yeah, I know. The one step forward, two step backwards has always been a challenge, right? So, so look, like I said, um, I faced, and I'm sure you have already in the time you've been doing this. We face our ups and downs. So I've been doing this 50 years. You face the ups and downs. I had to decide that no matter what ups and downs, I was going to keep moving because this is really, not only is this really the greatest adventure ever, okay, but it's a joyful adventure. And so I've always had to look at any, I'll say resistance, not take it personally, but just understand that it's part of the status quo, and we got to keep moving. It's the only answer. All right. Now, I do think, like you said, that we're going to make an impact. All right, here in the
Hmm.
United States, it's going to affect the world because this is a world movement already. All right. When we have Rat Fest and we have big events here, they come from all over the world. All right. This is people. This is the cry of life from people. And uh, it's not just connected here. It's not just here in the United States. It's all over the world. It's really the real way people need to connect and are connecting with the same higher purpose. So it's going to inspire these people all over the world to probably do the same things if they're not already in their areas. Join us here because this is a collective world movement together, and that's what I'm really calling for. It's not just uh, you know stuck here. It's not just United States that is just connected to. It people you've seen at Radfest. There's people there from all over, and they're excited, and they're going to be impacted by what we do, as we will be impacted by them, and we're going to keep this movement going.
Hmm. So, a possible challenge I see is, trying to be within one established country or a legacy country like the United States. There's always the possibility of the controlling agencies to say, go ahead, let's do the research, let's make it happen, to get the people in to come up with a cure to aging. But this, as soon as it happens, to take that patent, to take that cure and keep it for themselves and demonize it and make it not available to the masses. And we've seen this like with Nikola Tesla. A lot of his things, they could have revolutionized society years. We would already be, way further along than we are now if his inventions and things had been available to the masses as soon as he had come up with it. But his patents were pulled and taken and squashed, and all that technology was kept, within the government.
Yeah,
So I see a challenge of if the government and the agencies do that same thing, they allow a cure to be created just so they can take it for themselves and not give it to the masses. Then we have an elite class that has immortality themselves, and they just perpetuate this current society we're in of having control over everything and everyone while they're dying off, and as it is, but the elite keeps on going. So I think there's something to be said about having a country that's not tied to a country, and you know maybe this is because I'm involved with a network state project. This is making a lot of sense to me. But if we transcend one set border, then no matter what one agency or one government does, the movement still carries on. And if it happens in that network around the world, because it's a world movement, as you said, then even if it gets squashed in one spot, it still rises in another area, and it can become a commercialized, marketable cure that no matter what gets to the masses. And that's when the real paradigm shift happens, when you reach that global tipping point. And to go back a few years, Coca-Cola has this. They've been sued in countries and have almost gone bankrupt a couple times in certain countries, but they make so much money from other countries around the world that it almost didn't matter. They could just let that leg of the business go. So if we can take that same model and put it to this cure to aging, then it's almost unstoppable. It's an idea whose time has come, and I think that type of avenue is how it would happen, transcending these uh, borders as we see them now. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that?
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that's it's super. I mean, um, I think we all. I mean, it's a very innovative and very exciting concept. I mean, to create your own country like you're talking about, and then not be subject then to the right to all the restrictions that I mean, and then like you said, that could spread, that could catch on fire. I think it's a great movement. I think we need all these different movements going. At one time maybe
Hmm.
we're talking about the different longevity therapies and innovations. There's not just going to be one of those. I don't think there's just one idea of any of us that's going to make this all happen. It's this proliferate. It's this all these ideas coming together. Like I really commend you and whoever your rest of your team for moving for this. I don't know how far along you are on it yet, but I'm always happy to help on any level that you guys would need on any to boost things. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about how
Yeah,
that's going?
it launched actually on September 3rd, which is a couple days before my birthday, so I'm sure there's no
Okay.
coincidence there. um, but so it's fairly new. We've got almost 600 citizens that are on it. Immortalis is the name of the network state project, Immortalis. And there's almost 600 citizens that are all on the website as a collective who are moving towards this, with different projects going within that. What I'm doing with this channel is just one of the avenues, one of the projects as an outreach. And it's growing pretty quickly. We've got a GDP that's established and growing, and a collective real estate of citizens who own property in different areas around the world. And so as that grows, we'll get more of a recognition on the global scale, and with that, we'll get the crowdfunding to buy a central landmass, and we'll be able to establish sovereign government there, and then that would transcend. What happened with Prospero in Honduras would not be an issue because it's our own country, it's our own government that's based on a protection only platform, where the only regulation can come in protection of individuals, their property, their contract, and not regulation to protect a minority group other than the individual. Any minority group that's larger than just the individual can be twisted to then give priority to one group over the other. And we see this all around the world. But if we have a constitutional platform of protection only, then that gives freedom to every industry, and that's what we want to establish. And we think having our own landmass, our own country that's recognized and sovereign, can run parallel to all these legacy countries that are around, and we'll have innovation happen so much faster, and then that's going to spread around the world. We can commercialize a cure to aging in a free uh, government or a free country, and it's going to spread across the world from there. Just that's the nature of humanity and humans. We're social, and things spread like that. So that's kind of the project. We can talk more about it another time.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got a
Yeah.
link
I
here too.
love
I'll
it.
show to everybody.
I
Oop.
love it. Yeah. I think it's really great.
It's joinimmortalis.com for anyone who is watching that wants more information on that. You can see a whole breakdown of the plan of what we're doing and how it all
Yeah.
works.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Very, very tremendous concept. I like it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's a few of these projects going on. Lawrence Ion, he was at RadFest in
Yes.
September in Anaheim, and he gave a talk about Vitalia. And I had a chance with my uncle to talk with him during the VIP party. Which, by the way, to people who haven't gone to RadFest, if you want an opportunity to talk to some of these scientists on that leading edge making this happen, go VIP to RadFest. You get a party where you're just with the speakers, and it's an incredible thing. Some of the best times I've ever had in my life was at that. So check that out.
Yeah. That's
Um,
true.
but I had a
Yeah.
chance to
Beautiful.
talk with him there, and that was really my first introduction to what he's doing pop-up cities, but that's kind of the precursor to a whole network state. And it blew my mind. I had to dive more into it, and just by serendipity, is around the same time that I found the Immortalis project and decided to jump on board with that. So, things are lining up in my life, so I know this is my call to action. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, Lawrence, he's great. And he wants to do a pop up city here in Scottsdale. So he wants to work with us because we already have a community here. And so he feels he and his
Oh, cool.
assistant, can't think of her name right now, who just did one, I think in Berlin, right? She just did a pop
Hmm.
up city last month, I think in Berlin, right after Radfest. And she's going to come here in January to, check out People Unlimited and check the community here and get ideas for a pop up city, which we're open to help on if they would like us to. So anything we can help you guys on through the network, we're always happy to collaborate, and that's what we need to do. We all need to help each other, and show
Yeah.
up for it. I mean, there's all these great things and ideas people are. I just want to encourage everybody, like yourself, to do follow through with what you're doing, and I think it's my hats off to you. I know none of these things are necessarily easy, but at the same time, like you said, when you're really moving what your inspiration is, then you feel more propelled, right? You feel more. It's like it's energizing, and
Yeah.
but I think it's just a great idea.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So before we go, I want to ask you one more time about the DC rally. Is there a website or something people can go to that I could add to the description on this video so people can go check that out, get more information on that?
Well, they can go to the coalition website here. Right now, we're working
Okay.
on getting the license for it, for the rally, and we
Uh-huh.
haven't set the date because it depends upon, as you probably would guess, they have continuous events along that DC mall, right? And that's one of the
Hmm.
challenges is to get that timing. So we're working on that right now. We're working again, like I said, for the spring of 26,
Okay.
and probably no later than the first of the year, we'll be able to announce the exact time and have the full website up. Right now, we just have, I think, just a little bit of information about it on there. But a key thing is we're using RadFest this year and Vegas to be kind of a launch pad for that rally. So everybody who wants to participate at the at the rally, it'd be great if you could make it to Radfest because we'll be having a meeting there about the rally, and it'll be kind of it'll be a rally for the rally, you might say. We want to
Okay.
rally there at Radfest to energize each other and more, and really build that momentum. Again, we need numbers, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it wouldn't be as effective if you're going to build this country, which sounds great, but you only have, 100 or a few hundred people show up. You need, there's really millions of us out there, right?
Right.
And by all of us But you know, we got to keep. We got to. I'm just a big believer in that context. That's why I'm always at RadFast. The People Unlimited meetings here, I show up all the time. I'm a big believer in showing up for each other. That's what makes things happen in the long run. You know,
Yeah.
like you showed up at RadFest. We had that connect. We had the connection we had here now. It wouldn't have happened unless you could come there. Now we can help each other more. And wow, I mean, it that is really when, whether you form a country, which I hope is successful, or we are just moving together in this world to make an impact, one way or another, that's how we're going to shift. Okay, the
Mm.
institution, like you were talking about earlier, that gets stuck in its doctrines and its dogmas around medicine, the medical world as such, because we're going to show them that there's people who want this, and we make a lot. Look, another good example was the HIV movement, right? They were, these guys were dying left and right, and FDA would not release the medicine. They had to go basically in numbers of thousands and pound, fundamentally knock on their door until
Mhm.
they provided the medicines to save these lives. This is the same. We got to show up for this movement, and sometimes we're too separated out there doing our own thing. And hey, it doesn't mean you can't do your own thing, but we need to come together at the same time. So I've stressed that so much because anytime I made an impact. If I had started Radfest in 2016, nobody showed up. It wouldn't be there today. You know,
Right.
yeah, and that's the same thing with this country we plan to do or the rally, anything we do. So I think it's great that you're having this podcast. And one of the strongest things we can do is ask people to really be present with each other and show up for what we're doing here.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I'll definitely be there at Radfest. That's in July. Of course, I'll be going VIP because I've started, as many times as I've been, I've started making friends with, Bill Andrews. I talk to him every time, Liz Parrish. So I'll definitely be there. I look forward to seeing you. And I think I've talked a few new people into coming with me as well. I try to bring people when I can.
yeah,
So
beautiful.
you've met my
Well, you want
uncle. He and I will be there.
I love how you get in there. You're one of the best networkers there.
I
I see
try.
you get
That's
in.
that's the whole point. Why show up and be a wallflower? We've got to
No,
network and get to know everybody.
100%. And when you do that, you increase the energy. That's what we want to
Yeah.
do. We want this energy to overflow, right? We want this energy of our life to overflow so that people around this world can feel this new energy and go, what is that? What is that? You know,
Yeah.
these are the people who really want to live, and they'll take notice then, because that's what really
Yeah.
matters. And yeah, what we're creating in a real humanistic way.
Yeah. The answer to that is, what is that? What is that? It's immortality. It's an idea whose
Yeah,
time has come.
that's right. It's immortality showing itself. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps up what we had going on. Is there anything else you want to add that you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm just very grateful, of what's happening. I'm grateful, like I said, for this new merging with Aubrey de Grey and his group, and it's going to be a big step up. And grateful for what people like you are doing and everyone listening. I feel like we're blessed to be in these conversations and pursuing a life that is long overdue. It's long overdue
Yeah.
to bring about this new world.
Agreed. Thank you for being here, Jim. If you want to stay on the line for a few minutes, I'll end this and then we'll talk a little bit after this. But to everybody
Sounds
watching and to everybody who will watch, thank you for watching. Like this video, share this everywhere, and subscribe to the channel. Because as we've been talking about this whole show, we need numbers. We need everyone to show that they're on board and we want this. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.